you for joining us. I'm Paul Wilson.
And I'm Chris Emke.
And this is Diesel Performance Podcast. Guys, we got a great show today. We're going to be talking about EGR solutions. No, I don't mean deletes, and I do love the name of this. For today, let's dive in. We got the guys from FASS EGR Solutions. Is this a division of FASS Ride or FASS Fuel Systems? And I will ask that to Jake.
It's a great question. FASS EGR Solutions is a sister company to FASS Diesel Fuel Systems. FASS Diesel Solutions would be the parent company. So we are one family-owned business, but EGR Solutions is its own entity.
Awesome. And we also have Spencer with us today. Spencer, how's it going?
Pretty good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing good.
Doing good. Now, Spencer and Jake, you guys are both over there at FASS. You guys are both pretty involved on this project. Spencer, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background in diesel performance?
You know, I've been around it pretty much my entire life, but, just within the conception of FASS fuel systems, kind of kicked it off. But, the last, I'd say, 15 years really got pretty deep into that wormhole. And just progressed through the stages that everybody else goes through. And, here we are today.
It starts with one little thing, right? You get around fast, and then all of a sudden you get sucked in. I like the phrase wormhole. That feels about right.
Yeah.
Jake, how about you? Tell us your background in diesel performance.
It's not as in-depth as Spencer's. I'm a more recent diesel addict. My grandpa had a 12-valve Cummins, 96 as a dually, and, I thought it was fast at the time, and I have since learned it was not, but that got me hooked. And I joined FASS about 5 years ago. I've had a couple trucks since then, currently working on a fourth-gen Ram. I like transmission problems, so Ram is where it's at.
Yep.
And, just been full bore in the diesel industry for going on 5 years now.
Cool.
That's awesome. All right, good. So you guys both got kind of brought into the company or brought into the industry by FASS there. And the reason we're talking to you guys today is about FASS EGR Solutions. Spencer, can you give us the elevator pitch on these? What are the EGR solutions?
Well, we started with FASS fuel systems. That's cleaning up the diesel fuel. And then we kind of saw the direction of the industry being emissions compliant. And that kind of what led us into cleaning up what we could of the emission system, the EGR filter. With the EGR filter, we're capturing 85% of the particulate matter that would normally go back into your engine. So that's a huge difference from 0 to 85% reduction. Extending the life of a lot of components, as well as many other benefits. But we can get into that later. That's just the gist of it.
Now, I can say I've been excited in kind of anticipating this. I heard a few years ago about something kind of through the works, through some mutual customers, friends that we have within the industry. So it's really neat to kind of see this go full circle and finally come to the market. Currently, the kits that you guys have are supported on what year model trucks, or what platforms rather?
So we have GM and then some of the Power Strokes. The GMs we cover from 17 to current. There's two different kits, 17 to 19, and then 20 and to current. The Power Stroke, right now, all we have is 17 to 19. We are working to extend that. The Power Strokes, they had kind of a weird year breakdown. The 20 to 21 had kind of some different parts, but I think it'll fit the 22 and current. But we're looking to verify that here very shortly.
So, we, as an outsider kind of looking in on something like this, I know, we all know emissions get a bad rap. It's always easier just to kind of delete them and call it a day. In the U.S. and in certain areas, we don't have that luxury. There's always this discussion of like what a DPF filter's lifespan is, what a catalytic converter's lifespan is, what an EGR's lifespan is. What's some of the service intervals around the EGR filter itself with the system that you guys have?
So we are estimating, we're saying about 100,000 miles. Now, there's some give and take in that. On my personal truck, I have 92,000 miles on it, and there's no sign of it plugging up anytime soon, or not plugging up, needing to be serviced.
Okay.
The filter's designed so it won't fully plug up, but there's no signs that it needs to be serviced. Pull the ash out of the filter. 1,000 miles is where we felt cool. But truthfully, I think we can go a lot longer.
Now we're going to take that, and I'm gonna throw the loaded end of it in this. I'll get a customer that calls in saying, "Hey, I got 30,000 miles, or I have 80,000 miles, and my filter's clogged up." And then they go and they delete it, and then they find a slew of other issues that the truck had. Right, so you got 92,000 miles on your truck. It still has that filter on there. No signs of any type of fatigue. You guys are from FASS. Like, you guys are meticulously maintaining these trucks, fuel filters, air filters, boost leak down tests, all the good stuff to allow the truck to do what it needs to.
Yeah, what if it's me who owns it, who doesn't do any maintenance?
Paul doesn't even change his oil.
You would think, but I treat my vehicle, because it's a test vehicle. I test a lot of products on it. I am extremely rough on it.
Okay, good.
And I do multiple things, during testing for worst case scenario. I'll lay an intake on a hot tube to see if I can melt it, with the heat insulation that we provide in the kits. I intentionally try to sabotage it.
I love that.
And yeah, that's one of the sometimes fun parts of the job, but not real fun if it backfires and you're out of town.
Yeah.
All right, and I want to.
It's something that we have to do, and I feel like I have to do. Try to break it.
I love that. I want to break down a little bit because we've just been saying filter. So essentially, what this does is it plumbs in a mini DPF. Is that a fair comparison?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Basically, what the EGR solution does, what the filter is you're basically plumbing in a mini DPF in line to the EGR. So from the exhaust valve that kicks exhaust over to the EGR, we're putting in a mini DPF there, and it's going to catch all the particulate before it goes into the EGR, right?
Correct. And I'm very cautious about calling it a DPF. It works on the same principle, but this is not an off-the-shelf part. This was we spent about 3 years making the filter that we're now selling, and it is specifically designed, from the element to the cell count to the precious metals that it's coated with for our application.
Okay.
Let's talk about those metals or that design a little bit. I thought one of the most interesting things here was you guys explaining the difference between a passive and an active regen. And I think regen is something Chris and I have talked about a lot on this podcast. Can you guys just kind of walk us through what is a regen, what's passive, what's active?
Yeah, so I mean, on your regular DPF and your exhaust, you have passive and active. Passive, that's while you're driving down the road at a certain temperature. There is some variance between the different makes and models and what it's coated with. The active is when your truck goes into regen, injecting some kind of fuel to heat up that element. Luckily, with our design, we're doing passive. We're able to hit the temperatures that we need to basically be in passive regen anytime that the EGR is flowing.
Okay.
That is fucking cool.
Now, as an end user looking back at this is one of the questions that I had when I first saw the video go live. Have you guys done any back-to-back testing, or what are some of the figures as far as regen intervals through the DPF? Are we actually seeing a potential reduction because of the filtration system in the EGR?
So there's a lot of testing that we've done. There's a lot of testing that we haven't done that we want to do, and seeing the effect of our system on the regens of the main DPF is one of them. In theory, yeah, it's capturing soot, which is less soot going through the DPF, a more efficient burn because less soot going into your combustion chamber. So there is signs of good improvement there.
All right. Let me ask one of the tough questions. We all know that filters are bad, and anything that's there to make a positive impact on emissions is bad for the truck. Why would I ever put this on my truck? And I'm obviously being facetious because none of that shit's true. But
yeah. Well, I mean, some people, the only option is to leave all the emissions intact. And I think, it's moving more towards where everybody's going to have to. But this is making lemonade out of lemons. We're trying to work within the guidelines that we're given, make the best possible scenario of our situation, and capturing 85%. So it is going to extend your EGR cooler, EGR valves, and many other components, 6 times the life that it would normally see with no EGR filter on there.
Is it going to cost me horsepower or fuel mileage?
I have, with all the testing that we've done, we've never seen a horsepower decrease or fuel mileage decrease.
Okay.
And we hate to touch on fuel mileage increases. There's so, early stages we did see some signs of that, but I don't know that we'll ever sell on that because there's just so many variables.
No, I mean, we're the same way with the stuff. I mean, selling fast lift pumps and tuning for a living, it's, hey, we'll lead you to the water, but it's up to you to drink, right? You can't force these guys to drive a truck a certain way. You can't control where they're located in the country. And, I'm sorry that every listener that owns a Cummins has a 4th gen with 342s and 37s. Like, this shit's life, right? Like,
also, math is hard.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest. That division is a tricky calculation.
My dash said I was getting 40 miles to the gallon. Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah, 100%. So one of the questions...
One of the cool things that we saw in the early stages of testing, 3+ years ago, we started doing oil analysis.
Okay.
And after putting the EGR filter on, we saw about a 30% decrease of soot content in the oil.
That's
just
huge.
After one oil change.
Ford guys are just freaking out right now.
I mean,
what Ford guy doesn't talk to us about oil quality? I love this.
It's just every modern day diesel guy. Get a hot shotter that's put 100,000 miles on their truck a year that don't talk about oil quality. These motherfuckers are changing their oil every other week. So, what's the pipe? I mean, I have a 20 Cummins, right? Like, you offer the kits that doesn't pertain to me. When are we going to be to market with a Cummins kit?
You're the worst customer ever. You guys don't have to answer that.
Yeah, they do.
So, believe it or not, Cummins is the easiest truck to work on, and this application is the hardest one to create a kit for.
I was just going to have to say, right? Nope. Considering where the cooler mounts the manifold, there's no fucking room to do anything.
Yeah. So I have one. I started out on the Cummins, made it work, had to relocate the EGR cooler, but that wasn't really scalable to the production side of things.
Right.
I just recently did one, and it does include a manifold, which kind of has 2 benefits. One, we can provide a better manifold that doesn't crack. It would be a stainless steel casted manifold, so we don't have to worry about the cracking issues. But that's really the only way that we can add in extra ports, keep the EGR cooler in its stock location, and still put the EGR filter.
So are you more or less like just thinking aloud, taking like the back EGR port, putting it on an angle, routing your filter, and then having that kind of angle back into the cooler?
Yeah, so the EGR filter inlet would come out of the back of the manifold, and going into the cooler actually passes back through the manifold. The passages are separate, but it still, it passes through the manifold through a separate chamber and into the EGR cooler.
That's pretty slick.
Yeah, I like this. I mean, it is an interesting concept to me that for each one of these, generations of truck that you guys are having to go in and monkey around with trying to figure out where is this going to fit. How much does that piping design impact the filter? Like, I would imagine on some trucks it's a really direct route. On other trucks it's a big old U shape to get there. Does that piping design impact how effective the filter is, or does it not really matter? Air is passing through it, the filter's going to filter.
So the only thing that the piping really, the only way it affects it is the wall thickness. So I started out with 065 wall thickness because it was the easiest to work with. We lost too much heat. So I went up to 120 wall thickness on all the mandrel vent stuff, and we can mount that, 1.5 foot, 2 foot away from the EGR valve or the manifold, and still retain all the heat. So we have a little bit of flexibility there. The Power Stroke units, they're actually a cast stainless steel tube because it's so tight under the hood that you just can't bend that part. So they're even thicker. They're like 130 wall thickness, but they have some very intricate bends in them.
Has this project felt a little counterintuitive to you? So much of our talk about diesel and piping is about reducing heat. We got to get it cooler. We got to get it cooler. We got to get it cooler. And then you guys are coming in, and all I see in your videos is talking about how fucking hot everything is. I don't want my shit hot.
Fortunately for the emissions, the function.
Yeah, so we had to figure out how to keep the heat in as much as possible, which is, kind of different from what I'm used to. This whole project is different from what I'm used to. But, with the thick wall tubing, we can keep that temperature in, and it doesn't, really affect the components around it. A lot of the kits, they do have, heat protection to apply on some of the components, but most of the heat's retained inside the tube. So
that's so cool.
That's interesting.
I love the idea too. The way I heard you guys explaining it, and I think you mentioned it earlier here in the show, is that anytime the EGR opens, it should be hot enough to immediately burn off.
Yeah,
I have such a hard time getting my head around that it's collecting while it's burning off. So it like hits the filter and then immediately is burnt off.
Yeah, I mean, you got to get up to 700 degrees to light off the element. And I'm not going to try to be an expert. There's people with PhDs and very good scientists that do all this precious metal coating, and I'm not going to try to pretend I know everything about it.
I did my own research. It turns out they're wrong.
But I mean, you say 700 degrees. You say 700 degrees. I mean, for the guy that's going to hot shot, for the guy that's going cross country loaded down, where the truck's averaging 1,100, 1,000, maybe 1,200 degrees, like this is a perfect product for them, where the truck is in a constant passive regen state. So it's only going to benefit them to burn off that particulate matter as it's entering the EGR cooler and making its way back into the intake to be ingested back into the motor. Like it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, Jake and myself, we did a video of, driving around in my truck and, just driving around town 45 miles an hour. You can get up to that 700 degrees pretty easily.
Oh, yeah.
Just on flat ground and just cruising at 45.
Yeah, you guys weren't loaded or anything. That was a cool video to see.
Well, you think about it. You think about driving down the highway, even unloaded. The trucks are going to average, anywhere from, call it, 650, 700, all the way up to 850, depending on wheel size and vehicle speed. So, you're right there. Like the truck's working for you, not against you at that point from that perspective.
Yes.
This is one of the few new products that's come out, Chris, where I just look at it and I'm like, I'm trying to find where's the hole? Do you know what I mean? Like Chris and I have been around the block once or twice with new products, and sometimes we get really excited about the bells and whistles, and then you go to start dealing with the product and you find out there is this major flaw that nobody realized. Have you had these in circulation? I know you guys have been working on them for 3 to 5 years. Have you had them in circulation? How many of them are out in the wild?
So we started shipping earlier this year. I think like April, May, and there's several hundred out there. that have just been purchased from our customers.
That's so cool.
It's a little bit more challenging than I think most of us expected. Just educating the customers and then shifting their mindset a different direction, because there's nothing else out there like this, and we're doing as much education as we can. And
yeah,
is that why Brad made the video where he pulls out his gun and talks about his radar detector?
Oh my god, I didn't watch it.
Okay, guys, if you haven't watched that fucking video, if you're a listener right now and you're like, what is Paul talking about? Every single comment below that video is, this is why I love FASS. You just got a customer for life. So it worked. As far as marketing goes, it worked.
Yeah, it did. It did.
Well, everybody in the industry knows that Brad's really a good one to poke at, and piss off. So I was happy to see him come out and make a response video. They always put a smile on my face. No, but it is. This is one of those products that I think we ran into this years ago, Chris. When we stopped doing deletes.
I was just going to say I relate, right? I sell emissions and TAC tuning and have to, talk about what the differences are and what to expect from an emissions on to an emissions off state. And, there's a lot of guys that daily will call the shop and, they think I'm either full of shit or it's not really feasible. And, we had to create a market, right? We had to create a demand for the product and have our T's crossed and our I's dotted. It's no different here, right? Having a filter for your EGR cooler, it makes total sense. Like, I get it.
It's so logical.
It's super cool and it's super innovative. But in a world where it's, delete's the only option, there's a lot of education here. How has the education process, Spencer, been for you guys with the rollout? I mean, has there been a lot of acceptance of, or is it one of those that you realize that maybe you took on a little more than you can chew, just entering the space with this?
I'll let Jake answer that because he's our social media guru and deals with a lot of the customers.
Jake, tell me about all the Facebook comments. Please tell me.
How many of you deleted? That's where I gauge all social media responses.
Yeah, deleting the delete comments. So that's a great question, and I'll do a little bit of brown nosing here. Fortunately, Spencer and Brad were very supportive of the idea and believed in the idea that we're not trying to sell people on not deleting. If you are outside the U.S. and you can do it legally, wink, or you're in an area or you just don't care, we're not trying to tell you not to. We don't think that's a good approach. We think we're just you're going to turn people off by trying to convince them the other way. So we've approached this from day one as an emissions compliant solution alternative to deleting. And the funny thing is, and you guys probably know this better than anyone, some people assume that deleting is this easy street, no problems, everything is going to be better once I delete my truck. And I can tell you from some very, very bad tune files that my friends are battling that that's not true. So anyway, to answer your question, the response has been actually largely very supportive.
That's awesome.
Of course, every time we post about it, there's one comment of like, I'm not doing that, I'm deleting my truck. And that's fine. We're not trying to convince that guy otherwise. But the hot shotter, the guy who, lives in a state, let's say like New Jersey, where deleting is truly not an option for the most part, we're there for that guy. And we've had a lot of really productive conversations around while I was thinking that I was stuck with a stock emissions truck and I was just going to have to battle EGR and DPF problems. And, at least on the EGR side, we're able to say, hey, that's no longer the case. You don't have to break the law, but you don't have to worry about, replacing an EGR cooler at 75 or 100,000 miles.
It has been a really nice approach. I will tell you early on, we produced a video that is labeled 5 Reasons Not to Delete Your LML. And we have more dislikes on that video than we do on the rest of our channel combined. And fresh comments every day. So far, nobody has complimented the video. But I do like your guys' approach. I do like that concept of listen, we're not trying to make, atheist believers here, right? Like,
No.
you do your thing, that's fine.
I mean-
for the guys this is going to work for, here's this massive solution to this huge fucking problem you've had for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are also, Paul and I have also been accused of being working for the EPA. Like, the podcast is funded by the EPA. That was a big thing a couple years ago.
Just got one yesterday on YouTube for it.
EPA,
Yeah.
where's my fucking check?
Yeah.
Where is my fucking check? That's all I want.
The mortgage company really wants to know. My mortgage company wants to know where your check is, EPA.
But no, going into it with that approach, like, hey, guys call into us, like, I don't care what you do to the truck, right? You don't want my product, that's fine. Like, I don't care about your opinion for the most part. Like, there is a group of people in pockets of the U.S. where my product options work for them. Your product options are going to work for them. And, Spencer, Brad, I mean, you guys found a need in a niche market where there is going to be a demand. Like, and I think that's super innovative. I think it's a really cool approach to this.
Do you guys think you're going to get competitors in this market space soon? Do you think other people are going to be jumping on the bandwagon? Have you heard anything yet?
Haven't heard anything. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I know what goes into developing it, and that's going to deter a lot of people.
I can see the smile on your face, sir. That's like, fucking let them. Go for it. It is.
Yeah.
I think this is one of those innovative products. Is there more in the pipeline for this line of products besides just more vehicles to support?
I think just expanding the applications, Class 8 is going to be a big market for us, and we're working on that. Also increasing the efficiency on the vehicles that we can. So the 17 plus Fords and the 17 plus Duramaxes, they kind of dictated that 85%. But on some of the other applications, I believe we can get close to 99% removal, which I've tested in the past, which is super cool because you can pull the tubes off and with a white paper towel, wipe the inside of it, and it's still clean after, thousands of miles. So making improvements there and then going into the Class 8 markets, some of the pickup applications we're not going to touch. The Duramaxes, the LMLs and things like that, they have that tube built into the manifold as well. So there's nothing for us to tap into. And I'm not saying never, but that's going to be lower on the list than, Class 8. The Cummins application is the next on the list to get to market.
I feel all the 7.3 guys getting ready to request one for their model.
With no EGR to start.
Like,
Solid, Paul.
you should read some of the comments. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. To each their own. Have you guys done any testing with guys putting in some just ignorant ass tune files? They don't understand what Lambda is. They don't understand what air fuel is. Boxed programmers that just don't give a fuck. Have you ran tests with those types of scenarios?
Tell me about the trash tunes.
So, no.
Would you like
honestly,
to? No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, like I said, I will torture test my stuff. No problem. I'll clog up that DPF and the exhaust. No problem. But no, I've used quality tuners, emissions compliant, such as yourself and a couple others. On my vehicle, it doesn't matter what's hooked to it. I can have 30,000 pounds hooked to it. I leave it on 150 horse tune, emissions compliant, and send her down the road.
There you go.
That's awesome.
That's my philosophy.
Are there any misconceptions that
yeah.
people have had about the product that we haven't asked about or touched on yet? Is there anything I'm missing that like everybody gets wrong?
That's a Jake question.
Come on, Jake. Nail it.
Man, I wish I had such a good list for you of all these, product misconceptions. Now, we do get a lot of the, people say, "You're here EGR solutions." Oh my gosh, is that the wink wink solution? And no, we do get a bit of that. And then the other one, honestly, that we get the most is service intervals. People want to know if this is a and every oil change thing, am I going to have to pull this off and clean it? And how much of a pain in the butt is it? And like Spencer said, we're expecting 6-figure mileage out of these filters between service intervals. And then the other thing is, actually, I'm surprised I missed this up front, is complexity of installation. And Spencer can speak to it, but for being such a technically sound product, you would think the installation would be fairly intensive. And it's what I casually call a driveway installation. For the most part, if you're comfortable changing oil on your truck or putting in a new set of headlight bulbs, this is probably something you can tackle in an afternoon.
So you're saying the filtration system of an EGR system is more simplistic than just removing it?
Yeah. If you have a couple beer breaks, you can. All the applications that we have are an hour or less, with a couple beer breaks.
Okay.
That's I'm good on that break part.
That's a day for Paul, just so we're all on the same page on this call.
Whoa. Paul would never install this by himself. I would 100% bring this into the shop and have an actual professional do it. And then I would bring the beer for the beer breaks because I'm a gentleman.
Yeah. And Jake said something about, the cleaning of it. This can be cleaned almost anywhere that uses a high volume, low pressure, or an oven to clean, regular DPF. They have different adapters for those machines, and it can be serviced at any of those places as long as they have the adapter. So you can send it in to us, or you can take it to your local cleaner.
That's so
interesting.
Cool. Yeah.
I mean, have you guys thought about maybe getting into like serviceable DPFs and stuff like that too? It'd go right in line with your EGR Solutions filters.
We have. Yeah. The company that we work with for the filter, they're actually really big into racing, like huge into racing. So they like to push things, and they do have something for that. Higher flow and serviceable.
Interesting. Because we've seen some products come to the market in the past. We haven't really seen any of them light off the way this EGR Solutions kit is. I would say out of serviceable and aftermarket DPFs that we've seen launch in the industry in the last 5 years, I can't think of one of them that has sold hundreds. I would be shocked if any of them have. So you guys, I think, really have found this nice little niche. And it's a relatively affordable product. I know I caught in one of your videos, you guys are like, it took a lot to put into this. It's real high-quality parts, so that justifies the price. I looked at the price, and I was like, oh, holy shit, I can't believe how affordable it is. I know what we sell tuners for. I know what these guys spend on tires. I know what
turbochargers cost,
headlights cost for these trucks. Like, I thought you guys were well within the market of reasonable for somebody who has the income to drive an L5P, right? Like, I thought it was very reasonable. I'm excited. I think this is an awesome turn in the market for people starting to look at the emissions equipment and say, hey, if the OEM's not up to par, that's what the aftermarket is for, right? We don't like the OEM calibration. We built our own. We didn't like the OEM turbos. We built our own. You guys didn't like the way the EGR worked. You figured it the fuck out. I like that. I think that's what this industry is built on.
For sure.
Guys, it's been such a pleasure having you guys on. I'm really excited for this product. Listeners, if our listeners want to find out more about it, where should they go to learn everything they can and buy their kit right away?
FASSEGRSolutions.com. Then we have a lot of informational videos on all our social media. FASSEGRSolutions.com, and you'll find a lot there, and you can purchase that off there.
Chris, and anybody who's working with us, we are already hooked up as a FASS dealer. I assume that you could be able to help customers out if they were looking for one of these as well.
I mean, Spencer, Jake, can I?
Yeah, so all of our FASS dealers, they have the ability to sell this.
There you go.
No, it just kind of crosses over because it is a sister company.
That's awesome.
Start doing it.
So that's it. So you can come to DuramaxTuner.com if you want to buy one. You go to FASS EGR Solutions if you want to learn about one. You also can buy one from FASS EGR Solutions. We don't mind. Chris is happy to help you out if he can. Guys, for today, I again just want to say thank you again so much for sharing your knowledge with our listeners. Is there anybody you guys want to give a shout-out to?
Spencer?
Are you giving a shout-out to me?
Yep.
I was opening the door for you.
Yep, he gave you a shout-out, Spencer. Now, who would you like to give a shout-out to?
As far as the shout out goes, I would definitely want to thank the customers, the early adopters. This is a new product, not only a new product, but a new category. And the response to support has been really overwhelming, specifically being something that, takes a lot of education to understand the value of. And we've had some very loyal customers, jump on it and run these kits. And it's been really cool to see. So I definitely appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, guys, for today, this has been Paul Wilson.
And Chris Emke.
Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for joining us today, guys. This has been Paul Wilson.
And Chris Emke.
Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you again soon.
I'm not going to try to pretend I know everything about it.
I did my own research. It turns out they're wrong. I'm
But I
just
mean,
joking.
you say 700 degrees.